Onto the cloud, please, Rabbi Leiter. Thank you.
I did it. Okay, fine. Okay, welcome to Erev Pesach. So, okay, so truth is, I did prepare a few stories, and I want to tell the stories because they're Erev Pesach stories, the Eve of Passover stories. But we have a lot of incredibly beautiful material to cover, and so I don't want to miss out. Okay. The first story is of the Aptarov. His name was Herschel. Okay, and so the Aptarov, there's a special mitzvah that for instance, my matzahs, I have all my matzahs already. He's baked with a special chabura, a special group of people. We took over the matzah bakery for a whole day, and each of us participated in the matzahs, making careful that all of the special beautifications of the mitzvah, that everything was clean, that everything was done quickly, that we actually helped to roll out the matzahs. And there's one person that's just getting them into the oven and getting them out as quickly as possible. Everything from the time that the water hits the flour until the matzah is finished is less than 18 minutes. Okay. Now, there are some people that, just like the Passover offering was actually made, we're going to discuss that in a minute. The Passover offering was made was done on Friday, that the Paschal lamb was ritually slaughtered on the eve, the 14th day of the month of Nisan. And then it was eaten on the night of the 15th, immediately after. So since the matzah is in the place of the Paschal offering, okay, there are some people that actually start baking, they bake their matzahs afternoon on the eve of Passover. And what's so incredible about that mitzvah, the fulfilling, baking your matzah in the afternoon of the eve of the holiday, is of all the things that we eat, the thing that the most possible that it could become chametz is matzah, flour and water. If a piece of that dough gets left on the side, what? That's it. That's chametz. And so baking on Friday, not Friday, on the eve of the holiday. This week it's the holiday comes Saturday night, so the baking would be on Friday afternoon. But normally when the holiday is during the week, you're talking about, let's say the holiday is a Monday night or a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night. They would bake it Wednesday afternoon or Tuesday afternoon or Monday afternoon. That's the highest level of the mitzvah, but it requires the most amount of diligence that no dough should be left over, should be turned to chametz. Okay, so the Aptarov was very careful that he baked with his Chassidim matzah in the afternoon of the eve of the holiday, and he put in a special attention to it. And this is the holiest matzah. And he brought the matzah home, and he took a nap before the seder. Anyway, a poor person came to the door and knocked, and she wanted to give him something. It's already afternoon on the eve of Passover, and she wanted to give him some bread for the holiday. And she saw these three matzahs sitting on the table of her husband's desk, and she gave them to him. Okay, and afterwards she realized that those must have been the special matzahs that her husband made on the eve of Pesach, and she got crazy. She was so upset with herself, and she couldn't bear to tell him, so she took three other matzahs and put it in their place. Anyway, the Seder came, and the rabbi made a very holy Seder, and the holiday came and made a very holy holiday. And after the holiday, then it was after the holiday, and people would come to him with their problems. And a couple came to him, right? And a husband and wife. And the husband wanted to divorce his wife. Because why? Because the wife, she came from a family that ate gebrachs. And he didn't eat gebrachs. What are gebrachs? I'm sure some people know, but I'm saying gebrachs are wet matzah. There are some people that don't wet their matzah. They're afraid there might be some flour inside the matzah, so that wasn't cooked by the baking. And therefore, if that flour gets mixed with water, it could turn to chametz. And so people eat their matzah and don't put anything on it. Not avocado, not apples, not meat, not butter, garnish. They just eat the matzah plain. Okay? So the wife came from a family where they did eat gebrachs. And there are plenty of halachic, very wise people that said, no problem to eat gebrachs, to eat wet matzah. But there are plenty of very wise men that said, you shouldn't eat gebrachs. So the husband said, I told my wife I don't eat gebrachs. She anyway cooked with gebrachs, cooked with wet matzah. I want to get a divorce. Right? And the Rebbe said to him, no, you can eat her gebrachs. And the man was shocked because everyone knew how strict the rabbi was. The Apter Rav, the rabbi from Apt, that's the Apter Rav. The rabbi of Apt was about matzah, about Pesach. And here this great rabbi is telling this young man, this newlywed couple, that he should be able to eat gebrachs. And the rabbi said, yes, I'm telling you to eat gebrachs. Rabbi, I don't understand. Explain to me why. And the rabbi said, for shalom bayis, you can do it. And if you don't believe me, I'll show you. And he called in his wife, right? He said, I'm going to show you what I do for shalom bayis. He called in his wife and he says, no, my dear wife, tell us what happened with my matzahs. And the wife was shocked. She almost fell apart because she thought that her husband hadn't noticed because the whole holiday went by and he hadn't said anything. And she admitted that she had switched his holy Erev Pesach matzahs with simple plain matzahs. And he says, and the rabbi said, if I'm prepared to be mavater, to give up on my special holy matzahs for simple matzahs, for the sake of shalom bayis, for the sake of peace in the home, so you can also eat gebrachs. That's the first story. So what do we learn from that story? Everybody should think, if I tell a story, it has to be something to learn from it. You learn from the story that sometimes, right, there are things that are more important than customs. Whether you eat wet matzah or don't eat wet matzah, it's all a custom. And on Pesach, you're supposed to take on all the customs that you can to beautify the mitzvah and to protect yourself from eating chametz, because the Baal Shem Tov said, the Arizal said, the great capitalist of Tzfat said that a person who's careful about even eating the smallest amount of chametz on Pesach is protected from sin the entire year. Nevertheless, the Apter Rav said that when it comes to shalom bayis, when it comes to peace in the home, harmony in the home, just like he didn't make a fuss about his matzahs, so also he said that this young man shouldn't make a fuss about gebrachs with his wife making gebrachs. Okay, that's the first story. Okay, not enough time. We're gonna tell. There was another story. I tell you the truth, I couldn't find it right before the shir, but I'm going to tell it anyway, because I don't remember which rabbi it was. But there was a certain chassid, and this chassid was himself a very big Torah scholar. Okay, and he studied for weeks and weeks, like we spoke about last year. He studied last week. He studied for weeks and weeks. He studied about the Seder and all of the kavanot, the intentions, the Kabbalistic intentions you're supposed to have. And I'm going to discuss that later at the end of the class. I want to mention something about that. He practiced it and he got prepared, right? And he was all ready for the Seder. And that first Seder, here in Israel, we only make one Seder, but in outside of Israel, people make two Seders, the first night and the second night. So he really was flying. He did all of the intentions, and he ate all of the, whether it was the potato at the beginning, or the wine, or the matzah, the maror, the korach, all of the different mitzvahs. With all of the intentions, he ate the meal with all the intentions. He sang all the songs. The thing, he was flying. He was chapping malachim. They said he was like grabbing angels left and right. Okay, figuratively said. Anyway, he stayed up singing very late. Yeah, I guess with his sons were there or whatever, other guests, and they stayed up singing and telling about going out of Egypt into the night. Okay. Anyway, the next day he was getting ready for the Seder, and he said, I'm a little bit tired. I'm going to take a little bit of a nap. Okay, and so he took a nap, right? And for whatever reason, his wife didn't wake him up. Maybe she fell asleep also. Maybe they couldn't find him, whatever it was. And he woke up late. It was already into the evening. And one of the mitzvahs of the Seder is to finish to eating your afikomen. This is the matzah that we eat at the end of the meal. I'm not giving a class now on Pesach, but the part of the big mitzvah of the Seder is to eat the afikomen, is to eat the part of the matzah that we put away at the beginning of the meal, to eat it at the end of the meal, in memory of the Korban Pesach, the Pesach offering. And since he had to finish by midnight and it was late, he had literally minutes to do everything. So he speed read through the entire Haggadah, and he gulped down the first cup of wine and gulped down the second cup of wine, and he ate the first kedais of the first portion of matzah, and he stuffed into his face the myrrh and the matzah, the whole thing, and he gets to the afikomen, and he just finishes it, without just barely before midnight. And then he benched and he finished the meal, and to be honest, he was tzibrochen. He was very sad because all of the special Kabbalistic intentions that he had practiced and he wanted to do even better on the second night, he wasn't able to because there wasn't enough time. All he could do was to do the mitzvahs in the best way that he could. Anyway, after the holiday, or during Chol HaMoed, actually, it's mitzvah l'vakir rabbi b'Chol HaMoed. Just like it's a mitzvah. There was a mitzvah to come to the Beis Hamikdash, to come to Yerushalayim during the holidays. So since we can't, Yerushalayim, the Beis Hamikdash is in ruins, and it's certainly now with Corona, it's not possible for everybody to visit the Beis Hamikdash, to visit the Kotel now. So there's a mitzvah from the time of the destruction of the Second Temple to visit your rabbi. If you have a rabbi, and you can, to visit them. If you have a Torah scholar, a wise Jewish person that helps you in your Jewish life, to visit them during the holiday. And if you can't visit them, to call them, send them a letter, an email, just to connect with them somehow. Anyway, so this particular chassid, who was himself a big Torah scholar, went to his Rebbe, right, and wanted to pour out his heart. But before he could open his mouth, the Rebbe said, well, I don't know about the first night, but the second night, that was, one second, okay, that was a Seder. That was something special. And the man was shocked. The second night was better than the first night, and he said, and then he realized, because the first night he was thinking about himself, and the second night he was thinking about doing the mitzvahs for Hashem. Okay, so that's the second teaching about all of the things of Pesach. Not true, like we want to do it with all of the best intentions. Okay, but the point, we can actually study exactly about that point in a minute here in the readings of Baal Shem Tov. The person's supposed to be focused on doing the commandments for Hashem, not on how high and holy I am. The more that a person, as we said before, is humble, just like chametz, just like matzah is unleavened bread, it doesn't rise, okay, that didn't rise. Chametz in the person is their arrogance, and when a person thinks that they're so wonderful and holy and special, that look at all these things that I'm doing, if the focus is on the I, right, there's a certain flaw there. If a person is saying, how can I do this best for Hashem, then that's where all the spiritual power is. Okay, so that's that. We're going to start looking at the text now. Before we start the text, I want to remind you, is everybody with me? Did everybody hear those two stories? Is somebody awake or you're all sleeping?
No, the story got it. We got it.
Okay. I just want to say
I
about
joined a little late, but yeah.
what? Well, hi,
I
Dao.
joined a little late.
Okay. I want to say, but we learned only like 6 words last week. All we did, okay? And what were those words? Ki hamokum she'adam choshev machshava shamhu kulo. What did we say last week? A person, wherever his thoughts are, that's where he is. And we spent an hour thinking about it. I want to tell you something. There hasn't been a day this entire week that hasn't been in my mind. And I want to tell you what I took away from that. It's not about that a person can, yes, the Baal Shem Tov was saying that a person is where his mind is. If he wants to be in holiness, even though his body is in this world, even though he could be in not feeling good, or he could be filled with something emotional, he could be in the most material aspect that he can be. But the Baal Shem Tov was teaching us that a person is where his mind is. If he wants to be in holiness, he's in holiness. If he wants to be a merkava, a chariot for Hashem, he's a chariot for Hashem. If he wants to be united with the infinite, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, he's there. That was what the Baal Shem Tov taught. And what was I thinking? And I'm sharing that with everybody. Certainly that's a very important thought. Even though my body is a material thing, my body and soul are here in this world. If I want to be in holiness, if I want to connect all the time with spiritual power, spiritual unity of myself with Hashem, I'm there. Okay, but there's another teaching there. What does it mean that a person is where his thoughts are? At least we should realize that if we're davening, have our thoughts be in the davening. If we're with a person, have our thoughts be with that person. Right? Whatever we're doing, the first thing before we think about being in 2 places at once, my body can be here and my soul and my thoughts are in the heavens. Before we go there, that's a beautiful place to be. But the first thing is to take control of our thoughts and be where we are. That's really what I took away from yesterday. That if I'm going to, it's one thing that I should be walking in the street and think that I'm a chariot for God's will. That's beautiful, and it's one of the thoughts that I think about. Well, it's one of the thoughts that each of us could think about. But the other side, that whatever I'm doing, I should be focused on that thing completely. That's a very, very high level, also. Okay. That was. Thank you for listening to me about that. Okay, here we go. So we are going on to Nun Zayin. Okay, and the word say, it says, we're on the top here. Hope everybody can see it. I wish I could make it bigger. Okay, it says, V'ashiv raglai el edosecha. What do the words mean? It's actually a pasuk from Tehillim. It's half of a pasuk from Tehillim. What is the second half? 1 second. It says, Chishavti darchi v'ashiv raglai el edosecha. It says, I thought about my ways. What pasuk is it? 1 second. It's Kuf Yud Tes. It's the 119th Psalm, the 59th verse. It says, Chishavti drachai. I thought about my ways. I thought about the value of doing a mitzvah instead of a positive deed, instead of a negative deed, right? And I thought of the great value of doing a positive deed. This is what King David is teaching us. And I returned my feet. I voted with my feet. I took myself away from negative deeds, and I took it back. And I took my feet back to your testimonies. That's what the verse means. The Baal Shem Tov here is saying another explanation. Ashiva ragli el edosecha. What's ragli? He says perish. I'm continuing. Hergel. What does hergel mean? Hergel means something that I'm accustomed to. What are each of us accustomed to? The Rambam, when he talks about educating our children, he says you have to give a child gifts. If a child accomplishes something nice, you're supposed to give him a gift, right? And small children, small gifts. Big children, big gifts, right? Right? Because really, the attitude of a child is that he wants to do something because there's a benefit for him in it. Okay, and so the Baal Shem Tov is saying that I want to Hashiva Raglai Ele Desecha. I want my hergel. I want to use my hergel. Hergel, we're going to discuss what it means. My what the way that I'm accustomed to what I'm used to return me to Edesecha, perish hergel, right? Okay, so what does that mean? It's I tell you the truth, I struggled with this for a long time until I found a source that explained it to me. What the Baal Shem Tov was saying is that people sometimes see their body and their body's desires as an obstacle. Okay, here that that part of the reason that I like to go to shul, there's not so much shul now, it's just beginning, the shul's just beginning, is because I get to see all my friends, okay? And so am I supposed to say, no, push away, push out of my mind that material desire and only go to synagogue because I want to connect with God? Is that the ultimate? And the Baal Shem Tov was saying, no, not at all. Not at all. That there's something positive about those material desires, those things that we're used to, the hergel. What are the exact words that he uses? 1 second. 1 second. The hergel bavad. Okay, that it's the things that I do, the things that I'm accustomed to doing, not for God's sake. If you're hungry, you eat, and you're tired, you sleep. Okay, and you go hang out with friends because it's you want to chill a little bit. And so the Baal Shem Tov was saying, instead of seeing the body as an obstacle, he's going to share with us an amazing technique. If sometimes let's say pick like again, everybody can think of their own example, but going to synagogue, right? If the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning is because I'm going to see some people in synagogue, and that's what gets me there, and in the end I can use that time to pray to Hashem and to connect to Hashem, then in fact I use that material conditioning of myself to help me to do the mitzvah in the highest possible way. The Baal Shem Tov was saying, instead of, and in fact, he says even more than that. He doesn't explain it here, but I've seen it explained in other places, that the Yetzer Hara, our evil inclination, is just waiting to pounce on us. When a person wants to do a commandment, and he does it because, you know what, I just want to connect to God. I just want to be so holy. Right away, our evil inclination will pounce on us and will say, you're such a faker. That's not really who you are. You just love your Boston cream pies, and you like your very soft bed and your air conditioned room. You're into material customers. Don't fool me. And he tries to bring us down that way. So the Baal Shem Tov says, Ashiva raglai ele dosecha. I have to trick my evil inclination. I have to get myself to going. I have to think I'm doing it because I want to do it. And as soon as I get into doing it, I have to push those material thoughts away, okay, and push full force into doing it because I want to connect with Hashem. That's what the words mean. Vashiva raglai, that my hergel, what I'm used to doing, my material comforts, my creature comforts, I'm going to use those as the way to catapult me back into your Torah. Instead of those things being an obstacle, I have to see them as being the catapult to get me in. And that way, there's a certain aspect where I fool my evil inclination, and he won't bother me and let me to serve Hashem in the completest way. And that's what the Baal Shem Tov is saying. We're going to go back to the beginning. Ashiva raglai. It's what is going to bring me back to your testimonies? Ashiva raglai El Eidosecha, what's going to be affected? My hergelim, my material comforts, my connection to physical things, the things that I don't do for God's sake. Those are the things that themselves can catapult me into doing things on the highest possible spiritual level. Perish hergel, my things that I'm accustomed to. And he's going to continue. Okay? The hachanami, in a similar way, we have the same word that's used in a different verse. It says, kach, the verse says, im tashiv mi Shabbos raglecha. So what's it talking about? The pashut pshat of the verse. I think we spoke about it last week or 2 weeks ago. That there's a mitzvah tchum. Okay, in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, of the tabernacle in the desert. Okay, the portable temple that they had in the desert. The mitzvah from the Torah is you couldn't walk more than 12 miles past the last house. That holiness has a certain broadcasting space, 12 miles. And the rabbi said that really it should only be 2,000 amas, about a mile. Okay. You can't walk for more than a mile past the last house, because then you leave the envelope of holiness. That's what the pshat is. So the Baal Shem Tov says, no, don't read it in this context. Don't read it that way. It says, im tashiv mi Shabbos raglecha, that you should, the same way that we said, the word raglecha means my hergel, the things that I'm accused to. That what do I want to use to bring me into Shabbos? My hergel, my customs. Okay, so a person could say, when I'm cooking for Shabbos, I'm looking at how many ladies we have with us. When you're cooking food for Shabbos, you're supposed to enjoy the food. It has to be food that you like. When you make the beds for Shabbos, Chaya Bracha has special sheets and quilt covers that she uses just for Shabbos. Okay, we have a special tablecloth. You know what? The house is filled with material things of positive energy that we're proud of and that we enjoy using. Okay, and the Baal Shem Tov is saying, right, that the hergel when a person uses the hergel, the things that he's accustomed to, the things that he has a geschmack and that he enjoys, even if they're not for God's sake. Right? God wants this tablecloth and not that tablecloth. You know what? I do it because I like the tablecloth. When a person uses those things that he has a connection to, that things of this physical world, they have a material aspect, okay, then that will catapult him into that place of Shabbos on the highest level, of Shabbos where literally it's a day of unification between him and Hashem. You know, when we say l'chadaydi, when we sing Shalom Aleichem, it's very interesting. There's a lot of beautiful things about Shalom Aleichem. But we say Shalom Aleichem, welcome angels, and then we say Boachem l'Shalom, come in my angels, and then we say Bochuni l'Shalom, bless me my angels, and then we say Tzeis l'Shalom, leave in peace. Why do we have to say leave in peace for? Let them stay with us. What's the problem with the angels staying? What do you have to tell them to leave for? So there's a few different reasons that the tradition says why we tell them to leave. There's one whole thing about when Moses was in heaven, he didn't eat, and when the angels came to visit Abraham, they did eat. They made like they ate. It appeared as though they ate. Okay, and so because they wanted to be with people, but the fact is that angels don't eat, and so keeping them when they don't eat is not fair. Why should they have to watch us eating and they don't eat? That's one explanation. Another explanation is that an angel is a very. Wait, just 1 second. Wait, Mendy, אני באמצע שיר, אבל תבוא הביתה, okay? תודה רבה, bye. Okay, so the first thing is, why do we come to leave? So first thing is they don't eat. Why should we keep them there if they don't eat? The second thing is angels are busy. They're God's messengers. They have what to do. It's not fair to keep them here. But there's a Slonim Avort, the Rebbe Mislonim, he said, the reason why we say Tzeis L'Shalom to leave is because I want Shabbos just to be between me and God. I don't want even any angels to be present. That all the highest moments were just a Jewish person and Hashem. Moses and Mount Sinai was just Moses and God. Abraham and Isaac on Har Moriah was just Abraham and Isaac. Okay, I want Shabbos to be just me and Hashem. And what Baal Shem Tov was saying is that we shouldn't see the body as an obstacle to Hashem. The opposite. If we have a geschmack in it, if we have an enjoyment in it, then and we use that as to catapult us into the holiness of Shabbos, to share our geschmack with Hashem. And that's what he says here. He says, "V'hachanami," I'm on the second line, "Kach im tashiv mishabbos raglecha," that we should im tashiv mishabbos raglecha. We have to use our hergelim, our material enjoyments to bring us to Shabbos. Ha-hergel she'om hazeh, what we're accustomed to like in this world, our physical enjoyments, that will bring us into really enjoying Shabbos on a spiritual level. Then it says that then the verse continues, right? And then you will consume the portion of Yaakov. And what was the portion of Yaakov? Yaakov is the portion of Belim Eitzorim. Ufaratzta, you will spread out. Yama v'kema tzafon v'negla, east, west, now north and south. Jacob expanded infinitely. He's the father of all the Jewish people. Okay, and so when a person uses the physical connection to catapult them in to the spiritual realm, then they get their return. The spiritual return is much greater because the body is not an obstacle; it's part of the process. And this is what it says. V'yisa Yaakov es raglav. We said this verse before. This is a verse that the Baal Shem Tov loves. It said that Yaakov raised up his feet. What does it mean? Raised up his feet. He raised up his hergel. He elevated his human material comforts. He made them into the foundation for his spiritual life. Whether it's intimacy between a husband and wife, whether it's hanging out with friends, whether it's putting that beautiful bed cover on our bed for Shabbos. The physical things, God forbid, are not an obstacle. They have to be kosher, physical material things. Okay, obviously, but the fact that we have an enjoyment in the physical, that can catapult us into a higher spiritual level, and that's what he says. Sheyetza, that Yaakov went from Gashmias to Ruchnias. He used his material pleasures as a way to catapult him from physical to spiritual. Okay, and so the point is, okay, but no, that's what do you take away from that? If I was clear, I want to hear from you. No, Wendy, what do you think? Ivan, tell me something. No, Ron, Ben, what do you think? Thank you. My pleasure. I thank you. Okay, what did I take from it? A person has to, if God gave him a certain enjoyment with a certain kind of food, and he wants to make that food for Shabbos because he likes that food, what an incredible gift he's giving to Hashem, and how much more his Shabbos delight will be because he's taking something that from his own physical life and transforming it into something spiritual. It is a kind of music that a person likes, and he takes that music and he uses it to embellish a mitzvah that he's doing. He's going to make a Torah shir, and he uses that music to get the whole community into that right energy. If a person has a particular part of clothing that he likes, and he wears that clothing on Shabbos, okay, or on a holiday, or he'll give it to his children that they should enjoy it, okay. When a person takes his own physical hergelim, in other words, hergel is what we're accustomed to, the things that we do not for God's sake, and we do it for God's sake. That is such a mind-blowing thing. That's okay. Well, anyway, there is one story. It's not, it's not exactly what we're speaking about, but I heard it, and I think you can relate to it. That there was we're talking about in the town of Lubavitch. We're talking about 200 years ago, and there were two Chassidim that were Ktsavim. They were butchers. So there's a shochet, and there's the butcher. The butcher's the guy that actually cuts up the meat. There's a shochet, the one that ritually slaughters the animal. And and we said before that the shochet had to be a person on a very high spiritual level, because even if his hand jerks a little bit, the shechit is not kosher, okay, and therefore he has to be a very trustworthy and a very knowledgeable person, okay. But the butcher, on the other hand, was generally a more coarse person, okay. And so there were two butchers, and they used to learn together every single day between Mincha and Ma'ariv, between the afternoon prayers and the evening prayers. There's usually about 20-30 minutes between the evening prayers, the afternoon prayers and the evening prayers, and it's a custom to sit and learn. And so these two butchers, they would sit and learn. One day in the mashchita, in the place where they would cut up the meat, they got into an argument, right? They were two fiery personalities, and they got into an argument, and it was like they were holding these big knives. What do you call a butcher's knife? Axes, cleavers. They were holding these cleavers, and it almost came to a point where they raised the cleaver. That was how bad the argument was, okay? And everybody was waiting to see what would happen in synagogue that night, right? But because they almost killed each other, right? And they got to the synagogue, right? And they immediately sat down and started learning together like nothing happened, right? And somebody asked them, what the guys, the person who told the story was Munke Prus, and I actually know his great grandson, Munke Prus, and say, Munke, you're just sitting and learning like nothing happened. And he said, what does an argument in the butcher place have to do with us studying Torah? Okay, so here's the thing, where even though they were two fiery personalities, right, and even though they were very angry at each other, when it came to studying Torah, okay, not only did they not let it hold them back, even they went to a higher level than they were before. Okay, that's the idea. It's not exactly the same thing. Now I said the story, it's not exactly the same thing, but now the point is not only should not let the physical parts of the body be an obstacle for us, they have to be a springboard, a catapult. Okay, 1 second. Anything else? No. Let's go on to number 2. We're gonna do again. We have 16 minutes. We're gonna do number 2 and 3, and then I'm gonna tell you something about Pesach, and then we're gonna go weiter. Okay, it says Mea Baal Shem. Oh wait, anybody have anything to ask? Any questions? I'm going to start giving written tests at the end of the month. This is ridiculous. One question.
You do a very good job of explaining everything.
I have a question though. When the last story you're saying that if they were so fiery and they were so upset with one another, I understand that when they're studying, they're in a different frame of mind, but it's hard for people to compartmentalize. I'm not even sure that's a healthy thing to do. That was, forget about whatever they were arguing about that was obviously important. You got to deal with that. You can't just pretend it didn't happen, which is sort of what it sounds like they were doing. How's that healthy? Right.
Truth is that I really, that story was what I was focused on before I really understood what the Baal Shem Tov was saying about using our physical thing as a catapult, as a springboard. That it's not exactly the same. On the other hand, we said it before, Ron, is the person a body with a soul, or are we a soul with a body? If we're a body with a soul, nacham, then the spiritual thing, it's there's my body and I do that spiritual thing, okay, and it could even be a big part of me, but the main thing is the body. If the soul is the main thing, okay, and the soul is about my connection to the God and my studying of the Torah, okay, even though that the argument in the butchery, right, was so important, but if the main thing is my soul, that it doesn't even hold a candle to the studying of the Torah. Okay, and that the focus again is what's more, exactly, you're coming from your place, right? If a person has something bothering them, they can't, right? It's going to fester in them. It's true. It's true. If a person's body is the most important thing and the soul is secondary, but if the soul is the first thing, if really their whole day is to be able to sit and study together, and they have this, what their excitement is, then the argument, the other argument is nothing. Take a husband. I think that the best example is a husband and a wife. They can argue and argue and argue, and then I don't know if I ever said this before. My father passed away already 3 years now, and but when I got married, he said to me, my father wasn't observant. He wasn't observant at all. He left everything when he went to the army. He fought in the Second World War, and he said to me, Shaul, you have to remember, you have to look for the grace in your wife, because he said, because you're going to be married 6 months, you're going to wake up and you're going to be sleeping with the person, and you're not going to recognize them. You're not going to recognize them, right? So you can't be married to the physical body. You have to be married to the. He didn't know the word chen, but in Hebrew that word is chen, to the grace of the person. You have to see beyond the flesh. You have to see the soul of the person. My father actually told me that. Okay, and so you know what? A person who can you argue with more than with your spouse? Wow, knock down, argument. But the point is if the connection between the husband and wife is that soul connection, then even the worst argument can be put aside, right? And the opposite, that's the catapult to find the solution, the positive solution, because the most important thing is the soul and not the body. Person who's only in the job for the money, okay, then he doesn't, give me what I want or I'm never going to be happy. Okay, that's a physical, that's the body first and the soul second. If the soul first and the body second, then I think the point is clear. Thank you for letting me say that.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
All right, let's go. Okay, so now we're on Nun Ches. So here, this is also something we did before. I want to say something. Not everything is repeated in the Keter Shem Tov so many times, but this particular point is brought to 2 more times in the Sefer. There's a footnote at the bottom about that. He says, "Hine tre batchi." So there's a certain Gemara. It's the Gemara Tainus. Gemara Tainus is filled with a Gadatar. Gadatar are stories of the Talmud. Stories are very, very interesting. So it talks about the Shtei Batchi, and the words again are the 2 jokers, the 2 comedians. Okay. And when I first learned that Gemara, when we learned the last time, I thought these were 2 guys like jesters. Jesters, they go around in funny colored uniforms, like in the jester in the palace of the king, and they would make jokes and they would make fools of themselves, whatever. But that's not what he's talking about at all. Not what he's talking about at all, because the story there is about these 2 people, and Elijah the prophet was there, and Elijah points to them and says, these are 2 bnei olam haba. These are 2 people who are going to get the world to come. They're going to go straight to heaven. Okay, but the Talmud calls them badri, but they weren't necessarily badri. Look what it says here. It says hine tre badri. These 2 jokers. But what did they do? They would take all the physical things and they would connect them to spiritual things. And it actually said that they would go around, and I want to suggest, I know a few of the people here, some more personally and some less. We've been studying together for quite a while. Okay, and even though I keep asking everybody to ask more people to come, we have the same group, Baruch Hashem, means our souls are all connected. Okay, but I think each of you like that. Either a person is controlled by their environment or a person controls their environment. Either you're controlled, either you're you're the receiver or you're the giver. Okay, that's how life is. okay? And that what Torah wants us to be is Torah wants us to be Yehudi sholet al svivu. He wants us to control our environment. What does it mean to control our environment? It doesn't mean that I should boss people around. Controlling my environment means that when I come into like a social situation, I want to turn it towards Torah. I want to turn it towards a spiritual event. I could ask a person, "No, are you Jewish? Okay, you're Jewish, great. What kind of Jewish things do you do? Do you go to classes? Do you have a mentor? Do you have, is your house kosher? Can I help you? How can I help you?" That's a person who controls the environment. Instead of talking about shtusim, politics, the whole country here is talking about politics now. Who's going to win the elections on Tuesday? Okay, instead of talking about physical things, we have the ability to control the environment, talk about spiritual things. So that's who these two people were. They were two people, again, look in the first line there. Wherever they would go, they would take physical things and sanctify it with spirituality. Okay, they would go to the shopkeeper in the store and they say, "Wow, how beautiful what you're doing. You're selling people food for their Shabbos table," and they would go to the houseware store and they would say, "Wow, think of how many mitzvahs the people would do when they take your vessels." And they would they would go to store after store, person to person, and they would make them feel excited about how they would participate in other people's Jewish lives. And I'm looking at each of you can do that also, right? There is no a par experience. Each of us has the ability to take every single relationship we have and to turn it into something spiritual. How can I help the other person? It says, God says, there's a special Chassidic idea from the Baal Shem Tov. He said, when two people meet, it said they should do not only something positive for each other, something positive for a third person. Okay. So that's who these two Bakri were. These two guys. The Talmud calls them jokers, but why they call them jokers? For a different reason. What they would do is like what each of us can do, is we can take a par situation and turn it, even a negative situation, and turn it into something holy, And I tell my children, who have you met? Ron's met my children. Ivan's met my children. I don't know who else. Renata's, I think it's met my children. I tell my children, don't leave the house without a Torah idea to share. Don't leave the house. If you're going to go out into the world, have a Torah idea that you can share with somebody else. You can elevate them. That you can create a positive spiritual environment. And that's what he's talking about. These two Batli, these two guys. The Torah calls them jokers, but that wasn't their main thing. Their main thing was wherever they went, they turned this situation, the environment, into something holy. That's what the words say. Shehoyu miyachtim, they would unite, kol inyani agashmi, all of the physical things that they would see, the shopkeepers, the people they would meet, anything they would see, they would transform it into the kacha beruchni, to sanctify it with ruchnias. Zulis, but there was one situation that they knew that they couldn't transform. That was Misha Haya Ba'atzvus. That was a person when they were sad. If a person was sad, they couldn't, it was impossible to elevate them to using the normal means. So what would they do? It says Zulis Misha Haya Ba'atzvus, except for the person that would be sad. Lo Ya'efshar Yachtai, they couldn't unite him, physical and spiritual. Ki'im, only how? Al Yedei Shehoyu Mibad Chaytuchila. Only when they would make a joke. They would tell jokes. They would carry around a reservoir of jokes, right? For that person that was sad, they would take him out of his sadness, excuse me, okay, by telling jokes, right? And why? Because it says simcha paretz together, joy. The poretz breaks through all the barriers. Simcha is simcha. Simcha raises the heart, right? That the happy things that even that the technique that the Baal Shem Tov was saying, that a person, no matter how dejected they are, if you can get them to laugh, if you can just get them to laugh at their situation, laugh at themselves in a positive way. Think of a funny, a joke. I was trying to think of a joke. Somebody give us a joke. I couldn't. I was preparing for the class, and I couldn't come up with a joke. I even asked a couple of my friends. Oh, 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. Somebody. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. Just give me 1 second. Wait. I'm on Zoom. Wait, he says that my son just came home. Baruch haba Mendel. It says there were two people who used to be observant. Okay. Yoshim lishtot. They were sitting and having a drink. Okay. One starts to make a blessing. Baruch atah Hashem. He starts to make a blessing. Right. But these are kids that stop being observant. So Amar lo Hasheni, hey, shachachta. Did you forget? Anachnu kfar lo datiyim. We're not religious anymore. And Masmik Ariv Messiah. Okay, there's a pasuk. There's a pasuk in the 119th Psalm. The pasuk is Baruch atah Adonai lamdeni chukecha. Blessed are you, God, lamdeni, who has taught me his chukecha, his laws. Okay, and the law is, there's a law that if a person starts to make a blessing by mistake, he says Baruch atah Hashem, he says God's name. If he says the words lamdeni chukecha, that you've taught me your laws, that itself is a verse, then it's not, you didn't say God's name in vain. Okay, so a lot of times you have there's some food there, and you start saying a bracha on it, but you don't really want to eat it, so you finish Baruch atah Hashem instead of saying God's name. Instead of saying God's name in vain, you say the words lamdeni chukecha, and you didn't say God's name in vain. So now that we know that, so what's the joke? There were two people that used to be observant, right? Let's say two teenagers, and they're having a beer, okay? And so one of them picks up the glass and starts saying the bracha Baruch atah Hashem, and the one said, "What's the matter with you? Did you forget we stopped being observant?" And the other one says, like you're right. And so he ends the bracha with lamdeni chukecha. Okay, that's a joke. Did anybody did I say it correctly? The point of the joke is that the traditions are so sometimes in a positive way ingrained in each of us, even if we want to say to ourselves that that's not part of me, nevertheless, the connection to spiritual things comes out anyway. Anyway, let's move on. Okay. Any questions? Or what did we, come on. Again, the first thing that we learned, we talked about using the body not as an obstacle, but as a vehicle, as a catapult to get us into spiritual things. And that's what it means. Vashiva ragli el edosecha. I let my hair go, let my physical material connection to the world catapult me back to your testimonies. That was the first thing. The second thing we learned was about another secret. The first one, what's the secret of the first one? The body is not our enemy. The body is the catapult, the springboard to get us into spiritual things. If I love it, use it for holiness, and that makes the holiness even more special. Okay, that's the first one. The second thing he said was, the Baal Shem Tov is telling us a secret. If a person feels they can't move spiritually, they're stuck, they can't break out of their material quandary, then what does he say? Use humor, laugh at ourselves, or help another person by helping them laugh at themselves. Okay, what did one snowman say to the other? No, funny, I smell carrots also. That's a joke. That's a joke. What's the matter with you? You're all sleeping. What did one snowman say to the other? Funny, I smell carrots also. It's a joke. What do you say? If nobody's smiling, I can't see anybody's face. If I do what's right, God will do what's left. Are you all sleeping?
I like that one.
Oh, you like that one. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, let's move. Okay. Next week, we're going to start with a joke. right, we're going to go. It's quite short. We're going to do Nun Tes also, even though it's 11 o'clock, but I want to do it because I think it's a fitting end to what we've been discussing. It's quite, I think it's quite beautiful. It's very simple. What do you learn from the horizon? You know, the Torah says there's a lot of things you learn from different things. You know, you can learn modesty from a cat, and you can learn industriousness from an ant. Okay, the whole physical world is supposed to teach us things. Okay, again, the physical world is supposed to be a catapult to get us into the spiritual thing. God made the physical world. God made the world. There's nothing in the world that we can't learn from. I'm going to tell you a shocking story at the end. Shocking. But so the question the Baal Shem Tov is asking, the words are so beautiful, is the Nashke Ara Verkia. When the earth kisses the heavens. What is that? Earth kissing the heavens. What is that? That's what we say in English, the horizon, right? That's the point where the land and the sky merge. Okay? And in Hebrew, the expression is the nashke ha'averakia, the kissing. And we use the concept of kissing a few times before. When a person says Torah, it says God is kissing them because the words of Torah are God, and their breath and the breath of Torah mingle. Literally, God is kissing them. Okay, we used that before as a way to connect to Hashem. But when a person speaks Torah, it's like God kissing them. Here he's saying something else. He's saying that when the heavens and the earth kiss, when they merge together, what are we supposed to learn from that? And he says the kasher, to tie, l'chaber, and to connect, that it's reminding us that our purpose in this world is to connect physical things with spiritual things. Every physical act should have a divine intention to it. Okay, no matter what I'm doing, I have to ask myself, where am I? What's the spiritual context of what I'm doing now? And the Ayadeh said that when a person thinks always of connecting earth and heaven, like when I connect every physical thing that I do to a spiritual action, okay, this is how I make a union of Kutchabrichu. The word Kutchabrichu, or the Holy One, blessed be He, the Shchinte. Shchinte is the Shekhinah, the indwelling of God in the world. Every time I connect a physical action with a spiritual concept, I am connecting the highest levels of God with the physical world, with the Shekhinah, with the indwelling. Okay, and I think that everybody, you know, I think it's just such a gift, you know, that whole thing, the whole idea that that we are all we have to do, like we said before, that person is where their thoughts are. When we take a physical action and we connect it to a spiritual concept, a spiritual thought, a spiritual perception, and that we're connecting the Kutchabricha, the Shchinte, the Holy One, blessed be He, and His Shekhinah together, and it's a privilege. It's a way that, you know, when it says it's the other explanation of this is the Yisa Yaakov's Raglov. The Yaakov raised his feet. It's like we don't have to be stuck in this world anymore, right? We can be in a different plane altogether, okay? And the physical no longer is a prison for us. It's freedom, okay? And I'm going to tell you now. There's a story. I don't want to ruin the energy. Maybe I shouldn't tell it, but I'm going to tell it anyway. I think it says that the Baal
I
Shem-
have a question.
Yeah. Wait. Yes. Who's speaking?
This is Shayna Linda.
Hi, Shane Linda. How are you?
I'm good. So I understand the concept of what you just said, but I
Okay.
don't understand the analogy because we can never reach the horizon. We can only see it. We can never reach it.
100%. I understand what you mean. Okay. But the point is, wherever you look, you see. You know, I don't know where you live. I live in Tzfat. I live in Tzfat. I live on top of a mountain. I live on top of a mountain, and whichever way I look, I see the horizon. Okay. I see where the heavens meet the earth. I see where the top of the mountains merge with the sky. Okay. And so the Baal Shem Tov is saying, it just like everything you see is by divine providence. Okay, it's really God talking to me. What is the divine providence? I mean, we spoke about it before, Shana. We spoke about it before. Even the Lubavitcher Rebbe says part is even a person passing away is divine providence, and I'm supposed to learn from their positive actions. And when I do their positive actions in my life, they're even alive, even if they passed away. Everything is divine providence. What is the divine providence of the horizon? That's the. It's not about, you know, you can't reach it, but when I see the horizon, what's the divine providence? That just like as I look at the horizon, the heavens and the earth merge together. Okay. So also in my actions, I have to move together physical and spiritual. I have to think every physical thing that I do has to have a spiritual connotation. And then I'm no longer a part of the world. I'm literally a spiritual traveler. Okay, that's that. I hope I answered your question. Okay, it's not about reaching it. It's not like the rainbow, you know, can never reach the rainbow. It's about seeing it. When I see it, I'm supposed to remember, just like the heavens and the earth merge together. So also I have to merge all of my physical actions and spiritual actions. And you know, and so there's a story. I'm gonna tell it. I'm gonna tell the story, and then I want to suggest something about Pesach, and then we're going to make plans for next week. So the story was, it says the Baal Shem Tov was once walking with Chassidim. You remember that the Baal Shem Tov lived in a Europe that was controlled by the church. And if the local priest or bishop or whatever it was didn't like Jews or had it in for Jews, it could be very, very difficult for the Jewish community. Many stories about that. Okay, and so the Baal Shem Tov was once walking with a group of his Chassidim, and he saw a galech, a priest, carving a Christian symbol in the ice. And the Baal Shem Tov watched him for a long time. And the students, they don't understand what it's something impure. The symbol is impure. The whole thing is not a Jewish thing. Why was he so focused on it? What was the benefit? And Baal Shem Tov finally completed whatever he was doing. They started walking away, and the students asked him, Rebbe, what were you seeing there? And he said, I saw that coldness can even bring a person to idol worship. That's what he said. Okay? In other words, what he was watching, it wasn't about a Catholic priest carving a Christian symbol in the ice. What he understood was that the message he was getting was that coldness, if not checked, can bring a person to ad kedei kach, until idol worship, until being estranged from his Judaism. Whereas the other way, warmth, heat, enthusiasm, excitement, it might not always have the right focus, but that enthusiasm can always bring us back to holiness. That's that lesson. So that's the teaching again of the horizon, is to, as much as I can, to merge physical together with spiritual. Okay.
Rabbi Leiter,
Yeah.
did he say that that he saw coldness in the Christian man, or holiness?
No. Okay. I'm good. I'm so glad you asked, because I want to be sure. He didn't see the priest and the crucifix at all. He didn't. What he saw was a paradigm. The paradigm was that just like here's a human person taking from the ice and making a symbol that was against Judaism, he said the same way that if a person has coldness in him, that can lead him tragically to negative things. Coldness, you know what? Coldness, contempt, like the opposite of warmth, that are the most dangerous characteristics when it comes to spirituality, coldness. Okay, that we have to, if we see there's a certain coldness, we have to counter that. Okay, and how do you counter it? By warmth. Okay, and how do you make warmth? How does a person become warm? You have to create interest. You have to create knowledge and consciousness. If there's a certain coldness, we have to find out where that coldness is coming from, where that negative coldness is coming from, and we have to counter it with warmth. Warmth is energy, effort, empowering myself, learning more, finding a chavrusa, finding a mentor, getting a counselor to understand better what's bothering me and to overcome it. Okay, but what he was I clear, Wendy? It wasn't about the priest and the
Yes.
and the crucifix. It was about he that's the word. He abstracted the entire event, and what he saw was it was something that a Jewish person could gain from it. If I feel cold, that could bring me to the worst extremes. Okay, and a person has to counter coldness and however he can, and replace it with warmth. Okay, and the warmth could be to a person who cares about me. Warmth could be knowing more about a thing that I thought was putting me off. Warmth could be, you know what? I say it all the time: getting enough sleep, getting enough exercise, eating properly, so that the body's not knocked out, and you're not fighting two battles at once. Okay, the hole in the body. It says there's a hole in the soul. Absolutely. Okay, a person has to be on the guard against coldness, because coldness can lead him to negative things, and he has to, as much as possible, the Jewish person is varm, is filled with warmth. Okay, hope that was clear. Okay, so we did three different very powerful things. The first thing is the body is a catapult to bring us, the material things is a catapult to bring us to the spiritual things. That was Nun Zayin. Nun Ches was about using humor to get myself out of a state of sadness, of self-absorption, of atzvut. Okay, and humor, laughing at himself. That's the way to get me out. And the third thing we said was that the teaching of the horizon, just like the earth melds into the heavens, so also I have to, in every physical thing that I do, I have to find its spiritual counterpart. Even if I think I'm being silly, even if I think I'm making it up, no problem. Okay, you want to take physical things and think about them in spiritual terms. Just like the Baal Shem Tov saw a physical act, he abstracted it completely, and he learned something spiritual from it. Okay, now, here I say this. Now we're finished. Thank you very much. We're not too late. A little bit late. I'm sorry we're a little late. Anything else I wanted to share? No. Okay. Now Pesach again. Let's just talk. I'm not even going to try to discuss all the laws of Pesach, but if anybody has any questions, they can certainly write me, or by email or by WhatsApp. Pesach is a holiday probably with more laws than any other holiday in Jewish tradition. I want to say, they're just going to repeat, but hope everybody knows already, that the first Seder is Saturday night. That means that Shabbos comes before. We have a whole Shabbos before the Seder, a lot of time to prepare for the Seder. Okay, the actual searching for chametz, as is the custom, is to do it on Thursday night, and we burn the pieces that we found in the house on Friday morning. But we're actually permissible for us to eat chametz up until the end of the third hour. Every place at its own particular time. You have to ask your local rabbi. If you look in the internet, just do a Google for the last time for eating chametz, and you put down your area, it'll come up in your Google for sure. Okay. I was going to say that the only thing I have to add to all of the effort that everybody should be making to get ready for the holiday is that I just saw such a beautiful teaching, a guide to the Haggadah by a close friend and also a person I learned from. His name is Rabbi Yossi Jacobson. He has a website called yeshiva.net, but I'm going to save you the trouble. Anybody who contacts me, he has a 15-step guide to the Seder that I found so mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. I think last year I ran my Seder going to his 15 steps, and I so encourage you, anybody who, you can either go into his website, the 15 steps to the Seder. Again, his name is Rabbi Yossi Jacobson, Yosef Yitzchak Jacobson. His website is called yeshiva.net, and you can find it yourself. But anybody who writes me, I will send it to you immediately, a link to that particular essay of his. And I think it's mind-blowing, and you'll enjoy it. Okay?
Could you put the link in the WhatsApp group?
Yes, absolutely. I will do that. Oh, I forgot about that. I will do that for sure. Okay. And Moro, one of our fellow students, asked me to arrange to send him some handmade matzahs, which I hope was taken care of. But everybody, if you should have also, if you don't have access to handmade matzahs, you can contact us through the I think everybody here should be in the WhatsApp group. Just let us know, and we will either tell you where to get them or try to send them to you. B'ezrat Hashem, okay? It's a custom we said it last week about sending matzahs to your friends and students, and we're happy to do that. Okay, and I think I'm saying it again. We'll put it in the unit also. We're also since in the middle of a campaign. Tzfat was hit very harshly by the pandemic. Tzfat is a city of tourism, holiness and tourism, and a lot of people haven't been working for a year, and so we're raising money to help people in Tzfat. If anybody wants to participate in the campaign, we'll put that link also in the group. Okay. Any questions, my friends?
Rabbi, this Ivan, I just have a comment on. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay. I just have a comment on where you talk about the spirituality and the physical being and the horizon.
Okay.
The way I look at this, because we're all energy and we are part of the horizon. We're not viewing the horizon. We are part of it, just like the energy of Hashem and the spiritual energy. We are part of that fabric. And when we extricate ourselves, and I love that word, Rabbi, we take ourselves out of the mundane stuff that we're always bombarded with living, we have access to that spirituality of oneness with the horizon, oneness with Hashem, oneness within the spiritual, universe. And that's what I think. We are part of that energy, even if it's a one molecule of energy, but we're part of it. We're not separate from it. And that's what I wanted to say regarding when you talk about physicality and the spirituality and the horizon.
We all agree with you. I mean, and I didn't say it, but thank you for bringing up that point. Seeing it is being there. That's the point. Exactly. We are the horizon. Who asked Shana, what Shana said before. A Jewish person is the horizon. He's spiritual and physical meeting, the body and the soul. My physical actions having a spiritual intent. Everything I do with the proper intention, right? I'm a physical body that does spiritual mitzvahs. I am Orion.
Rabbi, if I may add something to it.
Yeah.
Since we are part of it, we have a gut feeling, an inner voice, an inner spiritual voice that each and every one of us has. And when we could tune into that and listen to that, that's Hashem's guiding us through the hurdles and pitfalls of life. We all have that gut feeling, and we're not conscious of it, but as for my life, I try and be as much conscious as possible. But when we listen to our gut feeling, that's a spiritual feeling that flows through us, and we have the ability to tap into it, as it flows through us, and that's our guide.
Ivan, thank you. I want to take, first of all, everybody who wants to go can go. You don't have to stay for this discussion, but I want to just add to that, because that's the whole, Ivan, absolutely. But I want to say that's the whole incredibly innovative idea that Torah is about commandments. Commandments are actually how to take almost every single commandment, and the exceptions can also be explained in the same context, are with physical things. When I take a physical thing, when I take the skin of a cow and I make stone out of it, when I take the wool of a sheep and I make tzitzis out of it, when I take a tray and I use it to hold my chalitz, when I take a piece of glass and I use it to hold my candle for Shabbos, I'm taking those physical things and I'm transforming it into something spiritual. So it's not only about feeling that merging thing. And a Jewish person is actually not just able to, he's commanded to take the physical world and turn it into a spiritual thing. The Baal Shem Tov was taking that a step farther. He's saying that every physical act that we do has to be connected to spirituality. Okay, but that's something extra, Ivan. In fact, the whole Netziut, the whole aspect of the person has to be always about taking physical and turning to spiritual. You know, if we could see it, my computer, I'm seeing we have 14, 15 people with us, 3 times, whatever, not supposed to count Jews, but we have 3 rows, 3.5 rows together with us, okay? My computer is shining with spiritual energy, okay? Because I'm taking a physical thing and using it for something, a spiritual purpose, okay? That's everything that I do. Even more than that is, you're right, we are the horizon. We are.
Rabbi,
Right. Yes.
I just want to say quickly, earlier also when you said it, I was thinking with talking about the earth and connecting to the horizon, that of course Adam, his name is like from earth. He was made from earth, and then you have in the tabernacle the earth.
Right.
So it's very clear that in the Beit HaMikdash as well, you had that whole, all the time at the Levites and the Kohanim, everyone was conscious of this connection with heaven and earth.
Physical and spiritual together. But remember, we did, I think it was like a month ago, we said the word Adam for man has those 2 connotations. One is Adam, in front of Adamah, from the word earth, and the other is Adomet, Domet. He's like heaven. He's connected to heaven. Okay, two things at once. One's the lowest of the low, and the other the highest of the high. Okay, and that's what that whole idea of horizon is about. So thank you very much. And that's the tabernacle, the whole work in the temple. Okay, Baruch Hashem. You know, and now we're coming. You know, the spiritual cycle of the months starts with this month of Nisan, and the holidays also go in that energy. You know, Pesach is about also. Pesach always comes in the beginning of the spring, right, when the world's beginning to open up, and Shavuos is in the summertime, right, and all the holidays end in the fall. I don't know, maybe people in Australia it's a little bit different, but it's the whole time of even the holidays are about rebirth. You know, there's supposed to be a connection between the spiritual and the physical. Just like we're beginning the summertime, we can take off our winter coats and the things are beginning to sprout again, and the whole world is being transformed. The Jewish person is also to begin his transformation now, and we may be a good beginning for everybody. Everybody should have, the custom is to wish your friends a kosher, some people say a happy Passover, but Chassidim say to be a kosher and a happy Passover. Why kosher first? Because like we said, that Arizal said that a person who's careful not to even eat the smallest amount of chametz will be protected from sin the entire year. A person who for 8 days stays away from leaven, then he actually is able to control his arrogance, and said that God can't dwell in a place of arrogance for the entire coming year. 7 days of no chametz gives us the ability to have a handle on our arrogance for the entire coming year. Okay, and then we'll speak next week about next week. We'll talk about that 1 second, about the Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer, and the whole connection to the mitzvah of Pesach and Shavuos. So she's not with us right now, but Shulamit suggested that we have a class during Chol Hamoed. So we're going to advertise a class during Chol Hamoed. If anybody's interested, I'm not sure what night yet. It will be Wednesday or Thursday night. But it won't be in Keter Shem Tov. It will be just about things about Pesach. So anybody who can't come, they won't miss one of the classes about the Baal Shem Tov. But there will be a class about Pesach. Whoever is interested, and please to tell your friends. And I'm asking again, so many requests. Okay, at first, I love it when people share. Thank you very much, Ivan and Hannah. Okay, anybody who questions or sharing, whether you want to do it in the class or send me a WhatsApp or send me in the group, whatever you want. I will put in the link for the 15 steps of the Seder from Rabbi Jacobson into the thing. Anybody who wants to contact me directly, they can. Please look out for my class, and please, if there are other people you know that want to join us, or you think that might be interested in joining us, let them know. Send them a link and encourage them to come. Okay, Chag Kosher v'Sameach, kosher and happy holiday. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. It's really, really, really my pleasure. Okay, Kol Tuv, and we won't be meeting next Sunday because that is Sunday night is the holiday for people out of Israel. We will be advertising class for the middle of next week about Passover subjects to share, and probably a lot about the last day of the Passover holiday, Shvi'i Shel Pesach, the 7th day of the holiday. Okay, and this 8th day of the holiday outside of Israel, and we will meet again 2 weeks from tonight on Sunday, and get back to Keter Shem Tov, get back to our teachings a little bit. Thank you very much for coming. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi. Always wonderful.
Thank you, Rabbi. Yes, that was wonderful.
Kosher and Sameach.
Sameach.
Kosher Freilich and Pesach, right? Kosher and happy Pesach. Okay, let me turn off the recording.